Welcome home, family and fellow citizens of the African Order. I'm here with another video, and the topic of this discussion will be disposable people. I was watching an episode of Star Trek a long time ago. Whoopi Goldberg played this wonderful character named Guinan. She was an alien that had long life. She lived a very long time. Well, on this particular episode, a scientist wanted to take apart data and try to find out the key to making more androids. The captain was charged with representing data in the court session to decide whether or not data was actually property of Starfleet. While she was talking to Captain Picard about the case, she was explaining how this guy is successful in duplicating data. There'd be thousands of androids doing the jobs, the work that don't nobody else want to do. You could have a whole society of androids that you don't have to care about their welfare, their well-being. And Captain Picard looked at Guinan and it was like, "You're talking about slavery." And she said, "That's a little bit harsh." But that's exactly what that was about. Whenever you see somebody working for other people, doing the things that they don't want to do, and don't have no alternative of their own, then technically, I don't care what the laws say, you are property. As long as whatever you're doing, you don't have a counterbalance or an alternative to put food on your table and put a roof over your head, you are the property of whoever holds this sole primary provision for you. As soon as they say stop, you stop. As soon as they say come back, you come back. You ain't got no recourse, nothing available that will supplement or replace this income that this man is giving you. You're his property. It's just as simple as that. There's a video floating around on Instagram where it shows a young Willis off of Different Strokes playing an episode of Little House on the Prairie. He was telling his teacher how he didn't want to be a black man. He went to Michael Landon's house and asked Michael Landon, "Would you rather live 50 years as a white man or 100 years as a black man?" Michael Landon looked at him, paused, opened up the door, and walked out. He answered that question perfectly. Because imagine this. Imagine you were raised up in a household and you couldn't afford the finer things in life no matter how hard your parents tried. You would be envious and jealous of other kids because their parents did afford them a better way of life. When they teased and ridiculed you, you even thought about running away to try to escape this poverty. And then now you have your child coming home to you, living the same experience that you went through, and asking you, would you rather live 50 years being rich or 100 years being poor? How would you, as a parent, answer that question? You can't answer it honestly and say, "I'd rather live 50 years being rich," because you know the same thoughts that this child is going through went through your head. The thought of trying to escape this poverty. And you don't want to confirm their thought process because you may be on the verge of losing your child. The fact of the matter is this: whether you look to the past or whether you look to the future, don't nobody want to live an existence that don't have no self-determining factors to it. We the only people on the planet that march, protest, boycott, and at the end of all these social struggles, the same person that was in charge of you in the first place is going to be in charge of you after the fact. No, there hasn't been a movement to really put ownership and control of our way of life into our hands, where we don't have to worry about somebody else watching and monitoring everything you do. Every time they give you a nickel pay raise, they raise the cost of living 3 cents. The more they give you, the more they charge you, and it changes your life not at all. We're the only one that do that. Every time we take our hunger, our thirst, our needs, our wants, our desires to somebody else to serve, you're the property of these people. Now you can keep listening to your cowardly pastors or your cowardly civil rights leaders, and they'll tell you, I don't know what I'm talking about. They'll tell you I'm crazy. They'll tell you I'm racist. When they ask you to tell me one thing then. Ask them. Name me one race of people who would trade places with us. Name me one race of people who would want to be us right now. Here you have depictions of children lamenting being black in Little House on the Prairie, all the way to the futuristic times of Star Trek, where slavery is still an issue because of disposable people. And like I said, every time you primarily work for your oppressor, you're disposable. You have nowhere else to go. Nobody. And it's sad. The thing is, they don't want to not be us because we're the most beautiful people on the planet. They don't want to not be us because we're the most athletically gifted people on the planet. They don't want to be us because we're the most intelligent, the most creative, the most charismatic people on the planet. Suave, debonair, all these pluses. They don't want to be us. Why? Because we have no ownership and control of our way of life. They'll rather be here 50 years with some measure of control over their way of life than to live 100 years with none. You're a slave to anybody who owns and controls your way of life. Whatever business, industry you work for, if you don't have an alternative to it, you're a slave to them. The only slaves we should be embracing is when we're a slave to ourselves. When we set up businesses and industries to be our own primary supplier, where we can determine, we can decide. Nobody else is going to do this. Just look at through all history. Name me any race of people who come out of slavery, servitude, oppression, buddy with their oppressor, still fighting and marching to integrate with them. Here's one. Imagine if Twitter and Facebook was 150 years old. Would you be able to look back and see images of Jews and Germans kissing and hugging, loving each other, while their people are being oppressed? While their people are being tossed in the ovens, you see images of Jews and Germans loving and kissing each other, Germans and Italians. They would cast a Jew out of the community if they caught him doing that. You Negroes embrace them. You Negroes accept this. You Negroes sit up here and say, well, all of them not bad. Name me one Jew that won't say that all Germans are bad. Name me one Jew that would have stayed and lived solely up under the power and authority of a German. Name me one Jew that would have did that. We the only one. And like I said, we the most beautiful people, the most loving, the most charismatic. And with all our physical and mental attributes, there isn't not one race of people on the planet that would trade places with us. Don't that tell you something? And if the people that represent you, when you look up to a position of authority, and when even they would rather walk out of the room than answer the question honestly, which means he wouldn't even want to be you. Even when people were living in homes made out of trees, logs, these are not even 2x4s. These are log homes. And even then, they'd rather live 50 years as a white man and then 100 as a black. Nothing is going to change until we change. You know, it's sad that when you see the things that's going on in life, and you still see Negroes putting all their faith into the same people that put them in the same situation. Do you think for 1 second that the people that have been digging the hole for you for the last 500 years without no pressure at all going to automatically toss you a ladder to get out that hole? They've spent 500 years putting you in this position where they got total control over you. Do you think they're suddenly going to stop and help you out that hole to the point that they don't need you no more? Is that even possible? You know, nobody's going to rescue us but us. We have got to be the change that we are looking for. And I know it's going to be frustrating, it's going to be sad, and you're going to be angry when you sit here and finally realize that the person you was looking to rescue you've been looking them in the mirror all your life. But the fact of the matter is we got to realize that now, because ain't nobody else going to do it but us. I'm going to end this video here. And if you like this message, please share it. And if you like this content, consider subscribing to this channel. And with this video, as with all my videos, it is for the complete liberation of my people. And I'll see you in my next message. Ashe.